It's time for Speed77 Radio's Motorsports Madness, powered by the staff at Race Chaser Online. Today's racing news, yesterday's racing history, and now here are your hosts, Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Magda.
Good Monday evening, race fans, and welcome to another round of Motorsports Madness here on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports. And we kick things off tonight, get closer and closer to Christmas, and that means we have a lot of things to unwrap and talk about here over the next 2 hours on PMN. And we welcome you to the Race Chaser Roundtable. Jacob Seelman, managing editor at Race Chaser Online, with you here for the next couple hours. Alongside me, the senior editor at the website, Tom Baker. And Tom, we kick things off, and we usually start with NASCAR. We're going to start with NASCAR again tonight, but we're going to start with NASCAR on an emotional front because, gosh darn, the waterworks were flowing because we had an awards banquet on Friday night. The Sprint Cup Awards on NBCSN broadcast live from Las Vegas, and it was enough to get me blubbery. I'll say that much. And I don't usually get that emotional at NASCAR or racing in general, but holy cow. Jeff Gordon about broke down in his speech, and that was enough to get the whole world set on its ear.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was an emotional evening, especially for Jeff. And what a tribute that Tom Cruise did. That could not have been any more well said. Whomever wrote that, I don't know if Tom came up with that himself or somebody wrote it and they just, got him to read it. But it was just an amazing night. And Tom put it so well. Jeff has transcended the sport. Jeff has, with his work with his foundation and so many other things that he's done outside of the race car, he has really transcended the sport. And, I think back to when Jeff was just 12 or 13 years old running USAC cars on Thursday Night Thunder on ESPN, and just how amazing that was, because that had never happened. I mean, Jeff was literally the first one to have that kind of spotlight, Jacob, and to be able to race those cars at that age. And so here was this little kid, and he who knew that he would literally change the sport of NASCAR. The first driver development always gets credited to Warren Rainier and his father Harry with Davey Allison, but really the first of the youth movement was Jeff Gordon, who came from outside of the NASCAR Beltway, and just literally changed the sport forever. And his accomplishments are legendary. That was the highlight of the night, but there were so many other, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch's tribute to Kyle was awesome as well. I mean, just so many things about that night. It was a great way to cap off what I think was a very, very entertaining NASCAR season. And of course, crowning Kyle Busch as champion. Just a wonderful night in Vegas. I wish it was still in New York, but certainly Drew Carey did a great job hosting, and it turned out to be quite an evening.
Yeah, it really did. And you talk about some of the moments. I mean, obviously, Jeff Gordon was the highlight of the evening, I think. But, you talk about Kyle Busch's speech. I mean, who would have thought that he had it in him to get up there and be all sentimental and sappy? And there ended up being tears in his wife Samantha's eyes when he turned and directed the end of his speech to her there at the tail end of that. And, I didn't know Kyle had it in him.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've had the chance to watch Kyle in a few different interview situations with the media since he won the championship. Very entertaining, very funny, very at ease. He really is very, very, he's doing a great job with this so far. I think this year has really matured Kyle in a way that we could never have anticipated. I mean, the accident and the subsequent time off made him realize that I think that he's mortal and that, this can go away in a heartbeat. And then Samantha's issues and having their first child, I think has just really has changed him as a person. And I think that's carried over into his approach to the race car. It isn't, every race is not the end of the world now for him. And that's a scary thought in a way for the competition, because I think, when Kyle first came into NASCAR and was running for Rick Hendrick, I think a lot of people saw the championship pedigree, but he was the wild child of sorts, and he was kind of that young brash. And I think at that time it was, well, boy, when he matures and grows up, he's going to be something. Well, he's matured and grown up, and he's a champion. He's something. So I think his best years may be ahead of him, and I really believe that he's going to be a great representative over the winter for our sport. And next year, come a new package and a new whole new season. I think Kyle's going to be very very tough to beat.
I agree with that. And another team that I think is going to be tough to beat in 2016 is the third team that got us all misty-eyed on Friday night, and that was Martin Truex. And the speech that he gave and the tribute that he paid to his girlfriend, Sherry Pollux, who continues her valiant fight against ovarian cancer, and dedicating the season to her and all the adversity that they have faced and overcome, Tom. And we lest we forget that he moves to Toyota, moves to an alliance with JGR in 2016, and he's hungry. He's hungry to have some success, and I think seeing everything that Sherry has beaten this year has motivated Martin himself to be even better because of that. And, just to hear him talk so candidly about everything they've been through and beaten, it really made this whole banquet, I think, really makes you stop and think and appreciate everything that we've been able to see happen this year.
Well, it did. And again, Martin is another example of a driver who we thought we were going to see really come into his own and grow into the part, so to speak, with Michael Waltrip. And then, of course, that situation started to unravel, and he ended up going over to Furniture Row and struggled for a while. And then this year really came together, and you look at that team and you say, well, they accomplished what they accomplished with absolute zero factory support from Chevrolet. So you go over to Toyota now, you align with Joe Gibbs Racing, and you have all of that assistance. And you now look at Furniture Row almost as if you would look at Stuart Haas in relation to Hendrick Motorsports, and we all know where that's gone. So I really think that, again, here's another situation where I think Martin Truex's best years may be in front of him. I hate to be redundant, but, again, this is a team that I think is climbing rapidly. And, they're going to start adding cars, second car, third car.
Yeah, rumor has it a second car next year.
Yeah, at least part-time. So it's going to be very, very interesting to watch this. And I was very happy for the season that Martin and the Furniture Row bunch had. They're a great bunch of people, and they have really done it the hard way from outside of the NASCAR Beltway over there in Colorado. And so, I'm happy for the success that they've had for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely, Tom, been very, very fun to watch this season, and I think makes next season all the more fun to look forward to now. We do have a lot going for us. We got a new rules package next year. We've got some new faces coming up in Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, a new director of competition, yes, and Scott Miller, who comes over to the position from MWR here in 2015. A lot of good going on, and we can kind of segue here as we get set to go into our next segment here in a couple of minutes. But you segue, you get a new face in the Cup Series next year in Chase Elliott taking over for Jeff Gordon. That new face happened to win a fairly big late model race over the weekend.
Yeah,
for the second time.
Did. Yeah, the Snowball Derby. If you're not familiar with the Snowball Derby, it's I would say it's the most prestigious short track late model race in the country. Certainly the most star-studded. I think the Oxford 250 up in New England would be kind of an equivalent to that in a different sort of way. But the The Snowball Derby takes place on the first weekend in December every year at Five Flags Speedway in Pensacola, Florida. And just about everybody who's anybody in short track super late model racing goes there, along with some folks like Chase Elliott, like William Byron, like Daniel Hemrick, and John Hunter Nemechek, who was the defending winner. They all descend. And, you know, it's a magical weekend, really, that contains the Snowflake race, which is for the pro late models, and the super late model big show is the Snowball Derby. And Chase went and got the win. He finished second, but Christopher Bell, who was running for Kyle Busch Motorsports, and we'll detail this in our next segment, was the winner and was disqualified for the second time over the weekend. And Chase ended up taking second at the line, but being declared the winner in post-race text. So we'll, of course, break the whole thing down in our next segment here. But it was quite a weekend for sure, and we'll tell you all about it in just a moment.
Yes, we will. Right now, though, we're going to do a little bit of business, but we have so much more motorsports conversation ahead here on The Madness, so stick right with us. We are back after this. You are listening to Motorsports Madness here on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports.
Here's an important message from RAD and this station.
Hi, this is Bob Sheehan from Blues Traveler for RAD, recording artists against drunk driving. I like to party just as much as the next guy, maybe even more. But the one thing I won't do after I've had a few is get in the car and drive. Don't blow it. Always choose a designated driver. Remember, music lives and so should you.
Motorsports sales professionals. Performance Motorsports is looking to build a team of experienced media sales professionals to represent our programming to the industry's top companies, magazines, and racing series. If you have motorsports sales or marketing experience, know how to work with agencies, understand social media, and are incredibly creative when it comes to working with clients and promotions, then we want to hear from you. Top performers are richly rewarded. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444. That's 717-749-0444, or email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. You want to ask for Sue.
You are a waste, a loser. Everyone hates you. Why don't you just stay in your car and keep driving? I'm serious. Drive until you run out of gas, then get out of your car and walk until you find someone who doesn't think you're dumber than bricks. Could take a while, but at least all that walking might burn a couple of calories.
You may not witness bullying like this every day. Your kids do. They want to help, but they don't know how. Visit stopbullying.gov to learn safe, simple ways your child can help stop bullying. Be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
You own a performance car and you know how to drive, but you want to learn real performance driving. Well, Bunky, get that car off the street and onto the track. Summit Point Motorsports Park, the Mid-Atlantic's premier road racing facility, located just over an hour from D.C. in nearby Summit Point, West Virginia, is the place to go. And you'll find that Friday at the Track is going to give you what you need. For less than a monthly car payment, you can attend this regularly scheduled one-day instructional event in your street car on one of Summit Point's 3 world-class road racing circuits. You'll receive classroom instruction, skid pad instruction in their cars, including front and rear skid control, and 4 20-minute in-your-car instructional sessions from a professional instructor. Have fun, go fast, and really learn how to drive. Call 304-725-8444 for class schedules and details. That's 304-725-8444. Friday at the Track at Summit Point Motorsports Park. We now return you to 2.5 Men on Speed77 Radio's Motorsports Madness on the Performance Motorsports Network.
And we bring you back in here to the Race Chaser Roundtable. Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker here with you tonight. Kyle Magda, our usual third voice at the roundtable, is off tonight. And we started talking about it before the break. It's the biggest short track race in the land, Tom. The 48th running of the Snowball Derby at Five Flags Speedway in Pensacola, Florida over the weekend. We mentioned before the break that Chase Elliott went to victory lane, albeit in a slightly unorthodox manner, because Christopher Bell, as we alluded to, was disqualified in post-race technical inspection. But let's go back and tell the whole story here, because this was a very long weekend for the Phoenix Construction Toyota team. Chris set a track record, 16.027 seconds on Friday night during Nash 102.7 pole night. He was then disqualified in post-qualifying inspection for too large of a gap between the wheel hub and the rear quarter panel, which is a violation of the ABC, or Approved Body Configuration Rule Book.
Now, John Hunter Nemechek was also disqualified for a similar infraction, was
Correct.
he not? Yes.
Actually, the exact same infraction.
Okay, on Friday night as well.
Friday
so both
night.
of them were disqualified on Friday.
The track record holder and the defending Snowball Derby winner. So that elevated Noah Gregson and Corey LaJoie into the show, just to tie up a loose end there. And we'll talk more about those two in a little while. But then you go to Saturday. Chris, because he got DQ'd and didn't have a provisional like John Hunter did to fall back on, had to race his way from 25th, dead last in the last chance showdown, in order to advance to the main event in 50 laps. Not only did he do that, he won the race. Top 4 advance, but Bell starts 31st. It takes him about 100 laps to get all the way up to the top 4. He sits there, Tom, the rest of the night, takes the lead with 100 laps to go, leads 93 of the final 100 laps, does a reverse victory lap, a Polish victory lap, a la Alan Kulwicki, to salute the fans. It was his first crown jewel pavement late model win, pavement win, period. And then he gets to tech, and the car is 0.3% too heavy on the left side. Now, you can explain this, I think, a little bit better than I can, Tom, about the weight balance. They can only have a maximum percentage of the total weight of the car leaning to the left side, meaning it's focused on the left side tires. In the Derby rulebook, that's 58%, and they were over that.
Yes, and for those who may not be initiated into why that would matter, it's because on pavement, the more of the static weight of the car that you have on the left side of the car, obviously the more that the balance is shifted to the left, it helps you with your corner speed. You're able to stick in the corners. When you go into the corner, the weight doesn't transfer exactly the same, so it basically gives you an advantage of being able to carry more speed through the corners. And so the reason that you have a maximum percentage is so that you don't get everybody trying to build chassis with more and more left side weight, and it basically is a way to keep the playing field level and and prevent people from building such specialized chassis. In this particular situation, as you said, it was 58.0, and they, according to Ricky Brooks, the 51 car was allowed to go back over the scales 3 times. And the lowest number that they could come up with after 3 times was 58.3. The other 2 times, it was actually higher than that. Now, the counter argument for why this shouldn't have been a DQ that people make is because they say that, well, as you go through the race and fuel burns off, of course, the fuel load, a lot of it's on the right side of the car, toward the right side of the car. As it burns off, the right side gets lighter, more of the balance goes to the left. So, and also you can pick up patches of rubber, things like that accumulate on the tires and such. And so 0.3% amounted to somewhere around 8 pounds.
7.5 to 8 pounds.
Okay. That's, so the counter argument was, well, he passed pre-race inspection, but Ricky Brooks says barely for left side weight percentage. They barely got through pre-race. And so they were obviously walking the line and trying to play it right to the tee. And it ended up being 0.3% over. And so Ricky Brooks, with his zero tolerance policy, decided that obviously the right thing to do is to disqualify him. And so of course this blew up the internet, and and you have both sides arguing. Pardon me. Those who are in favor of it were arguing that, in fact, you have a rule, you have to follow it to the letter, because if you allow 0.3% over, then what happens if the next guy is 0.4 or 0.5 or 0.6? Where do you stop? And of course, the ones who are against it are saying, well, you can't see the forest through the trees, and it ruins basically the spirit of it. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. So, at the end of the day, my feeling on it is, after 27 years of being inside of the sport and, being involved directly with race teams, working on pit crews, doing tires, and, being involved on the media side, the marketing side, the track promotion side. I mean, I've kind of had experience on all sides of this. And at the end of the day, if you give these drivers an inch, they'll take a mile. That's their job. That's the team's job, is to go out and try to win the race. And some of them try to play it very close to the line. And when you do, sometimes you cross the line. If you cross the line, you should get bounced. And that's exactly what happened. I don't blame Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell may have realized how tight they were playing it, Jacob, but he's driving the car. It has nothing to do with him.
Exactly.
It was a decision that was made by the team. And when they ran their numbers, that's where they were. And so I don't think Kyle Busch should be upset. I know Chase Elliott and the team weren't. They took it very well 2 years ago when they were DQ'd for having a little bit of tungsten weight in their car, which tungsten is much denser, much costlier. And again, it's a cost-cutting measure why we don't allow it in this race. So there was only a little bit, but, Ricky DQ'd him. And 2 years later, he gets it back, basically, when Chris Bell gets bounced. So that's kind of how the whole thing worked out.
Yeah, and, there's a little bit of irony in all this, too, Tom, in the fact that when Chase got bounced 2 years ago, it was a Kyle Busch Motorsports car that inherited the win in Eric Jones. This time it's a Kyle Busch Motorsports car that gets bounced. And Chase Elliott, as you said,
who got bounced 2 years ago, gets
it back. So,
and here's the thing, Jake. A lot of people were the big picture of the negative argument is that Ricky Brooks and the tech part of this race are as big or a bigger story than the race itself. Oftentimes, my response to that is, if the teams would just do things right, he wouldn't be.
Exactly.
You don't get DQ'd if you're legal. So if you
exactly, Chase Elliott and Zane Smith, who came across the line second and third, were through and clear with no issues.
Exactly. So, again, if the race teams would do their job properly and stop trying to take the rule to the nth degree, then Ricky Brooks wouldn't even be a story. It would just be all the cars went through tech. They were legal. His name wouldn't even get mentioned. The only reason he keeps getting mentioned is because you got teams that keep messing up. So, don't mess up and you won't get caught.
Correct. That is exactly right. And talking about all this, I don't want to have overshadowed by all the talk about Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, what the run that Zane Smith had in finishing second. And arguably, Tom, if it wasn't for one more little caveat in this that we'll talk about too here, smoke from the burning John Hunter Nemechek car on pit road.
Oh, yeah.
If Zane Smith doesn't check up, he was running second to Bell at the time there with about 5 laps to go. Zane checks up, seeing the smoke, thinking there's got to be a caution. Chase gets around him. In effect, that's the pass for the win.
Yeah, and again, who knew? It's one of those situations where Zane's checking up because he sees a bunch of smoke and assumes that there's trouble ahead. And in truth, it was trouble on pit road, and the smoke from the fire of the blown motor on the Nemechek car was obviously going across the racetrack.
And a burn-up brake rotor.
And a burn-up brake rotor, yeah. And so, Chase passes him and ends up winning the race because of it. But you know what? I know Zane wouldn't want to hear this now, but if he keeps running the race for the next 3, 4, 5 years, my guess is just like Chase's time came back around after the DQ 2 years
His
ago.
will too.
Zane's will come around, and when Zane does win it, I think he will be more prepared and more appreciative of it because it wasn't his first time being that competitive,
Exactly.
And because he kind of lost one this time that he feels like he should have won, he goes and wins it again. And when he goes and finally does win it, he'll appreciate it that much more because of this experience.
Yeah, and obviously also a huge sigh of relief that John Hunter wasn't hurt in the crash. A couple of his crew members were injured when the car came into the pit wall right there, and one had to be taken to a local hospital and treated. As soon as we get more word on that, obviously we'll pass it along to our fans through Race Chaser Online. But, John Hunter did have a bright spot. He won the Snowflake 100, the Pro Late Model race on Saturday night, pretty much mopped the floor with that one.
And, again, what a 2-year period that young man's had down there.
First, second, first, and he probably could have been first or second if the car hadn't have burned up with 5 to go.
He had taken the lead on that one restart.
He did.
We'll never know if he could have held off Chris Bell if the brake hadn't gotten really bad, but and the motor hadn't blown, but he definitely had a car to be running there. So congrats to John Hunter, and we're going to see if we can round him up depending on his busy schedule this week. We'll see if we can round him up for the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show on Thursday.
Absolutely right. And, we'll talk more about the Snowball Derby on that show on Thursday night. Right now, though, we are going to shift gears and talk open wheel conversation and specifically Indy Lights in just a couple of minutes. Up next, Bilardi Auto Racing driver, former Andretti Autosport Indy Lights driver, Zach Veach, is going to be joining us to talk about his new opportunity. He's been off for the entire 2015 season. He's back in an Indy Lights car for the upcoming year with the Bilardi team, and we've got him on to talk with us right after this. You are listening to Motorsports Madness here on PMN, the Performance Motorsports Network.
Motorsports sales professionals. Performance Motorsports is looking to build a team of experienced media sales professionals to represent our programming to the industry's top companies, magazines, and racing series. If you have motorsports sales or marketing experience, know how to work with agencies, understand social media, and are incredibly creative when it comes to working with clients and promotions, then we want to hear from you. Top performers are richly rewarded. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444. That's 717-749-0444, or email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. You want to ask for Sue.
Every 30 minutes, another innocent person is killed due to a drunk driver.
My best friend.
My brother.
My poor grandchild.
My sister.
My father.
My husband.
My mom. My mommy.
Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you.
Stop these tragedies before they happen. Don't drink and drive.
Do you love the sound of high-revving motors and the smell of burning rubber? Do you want to get your car sideways right at the ragged edge of control? If you've always wanted to try drifting or learn to improve your drifting skills, Summit Point Motorsports Park, the Mid-Atlantic's premier motorsports facility, has the expert instructors and the specialized track to teach you how to drift and the skills necessary to drift competitively. From skid pad to open sessions, Summit Point Motorsports Park has the safe and open environment that allows drifters of all skill levels, new to intermediate, to get sideways and smoking. With a focus on safety and the skill set necessary to drift competitively, Summit Point Motorsports Park's Drift Nirvana is just the thing for you. Call for your reservation today, 304-725-8444. Or for more information, go online, summitpoint-raceway.com, or you can email them at office@bsrinc.com. Drift Nirvana, getting you sideways the right way.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearms storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network. Now back to Jacob, Tom, and Kyle on Motorsports Madness.
Welcome back to the Performance Motorsports Network and this round of Motorsports Madness. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker on the air with you. Kyle Magda is off tonight, and we move into the open wheel segment of our show tonight to talk with a driver who we always enjoy having on this program, and definitely glad to have him on to talk about the fact that he's back in a race car. Zach Veach, first off, welcome back to the show, my friend. And how about it, a ride with Bilardi Auto Racing for 2016? How glad are you to be back in a race car after all this?
God, man, it's hard to put it in words. Coming back, it's a feeling that, I hope to never experience again. Just keep it consistent here throughout the rest of the career. But, we were able to make the announcement the day before Thanksgiving, so I definitely have a lot to be thankful for as we get through the holidays this year.
Well, I would be curious how this all came about, Zach, because it was really interesting to see that you ended up with Bilardi. Were they the same team that you had a chance to do a little testing with?
Yes, exactly. I mean, first off, with the folks at Bilardi Auto Racing, like, John Bruner and Brian Bilardi, they've been guys that I've known ever since I was very young. So, the team's always been very, very close to me. And, we were even going to talk about doing the Freedom 100 with them this past year, but I had an injury that I had to get fixed. I had surgery on my wrist, so that kind of kept me out for most of the year. But, ever since then, we kind of just stayed close with them, and they needed somebody to test for them at Sebring, and they gave me a call and asked if I'd like to be a part of it, and I couldn't turn that down, of course. And we went down there, and we had such a good pace right off the bat, and the team and I clicked so well that, within the first day, we were thinking, well, this could definitely be a championship run here, so maybe we should try to put something together.
Now, you were obviously testing the newer Indy Lights car for the first time, because when you ran the Indy Lights series a couple of years ago, they didn't have the newer car yet. So talk a little bit about what it was like to get into this newer style car. And you say you had good pace right off the bat, so obviously you adapted to it pretty well.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, the whole car, it's night and day compared to the old one and the new one that we have now. And the biggest thing I would say, the biggest difference is that you don't have that big, heavy V8 behind you anymore. Now we have an inline four-cylinder Mazda that's turbocharged. So the car is, feels a lot lighter. So it's like you don't have to wait for the car to kind of transfer the load through the corners. So it's a lot more nimble. It's a lot quicker to react to the driver. And another thing you have to think about is the new Indy Lights car, it was designed specifically for road course and ovals. The old car was made originally just to compete on ovals. So, when they made it into a road course car, there was always some kind of monster that you had to drive around, if that makes sense. And
sure.
The new car, it has a window that you can find that's perfect. So I think it's really going to teach guys, that final step that they need to get into IndyCar even better than the old car did.
Now, one of the things that I know you've been working really hard on over the past couple of years, really, is your physical conditioning. And I'm curious, having been out of the seat for the most part, with the exception of some, pace car rides, if you will, two-seater kind of stuff, having been out of the seat for the most part this past year, but still obviously training with Pit Fit and doing all of those things, how much did that play into your comfort right away coming back to the Indy Lights car to be able to get in and just say, okay, I can feel the difference in my fitness and I feel like I'm really ready to go this year?
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of opposite because, being out of the car for so long, when I got back, it killed me. I mean, within the first, hour, I was like, wow, God, I'm feeling stuff in my neck that I haven't felt since I was, 14 years old. So, I think as far as, physical conditioning, I was, great for, where I needed to be. But there's a certain kind of conditioning that you get from just being in the car. There's
sure.
certain things that you can only feel driving a race car. And I just remember, at the end of the 2 days when I was on my way to the airport to fly back to Indy, if somebody talked to me, I had to turn my whole body because I couldn't turn my neck. So that kind of gives you an idea of how, physical these cars are. And the new Indy Lights car, I definitely think it's a little more physical than the old car as well. The Cooper tires are a little bit softer. The steering weight's a little more increased, and we're getting about a higher G G-load through the corners. So all in all, I think the car is a little bit harder to drive when it comes to physical strength.
With it, you talking about that, for those that know you and have seen you in the car, Zach, obviously know that you've really worked on your fitness and your stature the last couple of years to be more comfortable and be more able in these cars. Do you feel like that makes it a little bit tougher on you, or do you feel like, in a way, with as much work as you've put into it, this actually falls into your lap a little bit and maybe helps to suit you from a driving style and a driving standpoint a little bit?
See, honestly, like you said, I'm more excited that it kind of kicked my butt in a way, because now, I come back home with a little bit of anger, and I'm like, all right, well, I got to get to work. And that kind of just started getting me fired up to get, things back going in the way that they were. And then things just started to really happen, with Velarde Auto Racing. They were pushing extremely hard to get this deal done. And, I got to really thank them, because, they're the ones that actually made it possible for me. So, having that test and understanding the car is going to be a little harder to drive, that's exciting for me, because it gives me something to push to the next test. And the thing that I'm most excited about is, in 2014, I kind of just jumped into the limelight of, oh, wow, I'm running for a championship now. So constantly, every weekend, I had the pressure of, A, don't lose the championship here, and B, what do I need to do to continue the championship? So it was a constant learning kind of year for me of running up front. So, we definitely made some mistakes, I think, that cost us the championship in the end. And I'm excited for 16 because, I know what it takes to win a championship now. I know exactly what's the right way and what's the wrong way to do it, and I think that should benefit us a lot going into this coming year.
I was going to ask you about that and, talk a little bit before you just did right there, about what you learned that you may be able to apply to this upcoming year. But I think with all that being said, Zach, I'm now curious, knowing that you're ready to go and battle for this championship. Like Tom said earlier, you were out of the car a lot this year. I'm curious, what did you do besides obviously all the fitness training? What did you do to entertain yourself, not really being able to be in a race car for a lot of this season? I know there were a couple times when I'd see a post on your social media where you were going out of your mind, not knowing what to do, being away from the racetrack.
Well, I had to find some other kind of drug for a while, and honestly, I found outdoor rock climbing. So the more times I had to, rock climb, the more I kind of fell in love with it. And it's it was one of those things. Racing was like love at first sight. It caught me, and I was like, this is what I want to do. Climbing, it kind of the more I got to know it, the more I got to fall in love with it. So, now I'm kind of at a point in my life where, I want to, win the Indianapolis 500 and be a professional racing driver. But I also want to be, a world-class climber and, be one of the few people that's done a free ascent of El Cap at some time. And so it's kind of gave me more to focus on, and I think in a healthy way, right? Because now racing is there to, for me to pursue and chase. But when I need that escape, I have the perfect solution, and that's climbing, because it gives you that same adrenaline rush, but, you can kind of take a step back and just enjoy the moment that you're in and take a breath, where as in racing, you don't get that opportunity too often.
Well, we've got Landon Castle over here on the NASCAR side, who's pretty into the whole kind of triathlon, biking, and all of that sort of thing. And now you've got the rock climbing thing going over there on the open wheel side. So, and I know that a lot of the younger open wheel drivers like yourself are really into the, not necessarily rock climbing itself, but the biking and all of the activities that are like that. You're all real fitness bugs, and that's obviously it's great for racing, but I also think it just it would seem to have its own sort of thrill and accomplishment and satisfaction, even just aside from the benefit that it gives you inside the car.
Oh, most definitely. And I think that a lot to do with that does involve racing, because racing teaches you how to pursue something endlessly, and it gives you the mental strength that you need to get through really intense situations. So, as far as climbing goes, it's something that is very intense. If you don't do the right things, you can possibly fall hundreds of feet and die. So, it really comes down to that fine line, just like in a race car, where, look, there's a right way to do this, and there's an extremely dangerous way to do it. So it's all about kind of coming into your own in a very intense, high-stress situation. and not only performing well in it, but, thriving off that stress and enjoying it. Because, at the end of the day, all of us race car drivers, we love what we do because of the feelings you get when you're behind the wheel. And, I think we look for those same feelings in a lot of aspects of life.
All right, Zach, so obviously we know the goal for you in 16 is the championship, but as far as the schedule here, real quickly, what are you most excited about as from a track standpoint or, a standpoint of things that you want to get back to for this new season? Where are you most excited to hit in 2016 in the new Indy Lights car? And then, talk a little bit about the people from Bilardi and the sponsors that have helped make this happen for you.
Yeah, for sure. Ultimately, the thing I'm looking forward to most is, St. Petersburg. That was a monumental track for me in 2014, getting my first Indy Lights win. So, thinking about 16, I want to start it the same way. I'm hungry to go out and win St. Petersburg and set the tone for the season. But I kind of have a little bit of a goal in my mind, what I want to do as well. Because, with Phoenix coming onto the schedule, it replaced Milwaukee. Kind of sad about that because Milwaukee was such a great track for me. But I look at it with a little bit of excitement that I want to turn Phoenix into my new Milwaukee. So deep down, I want to be able to, A, win the championship, but B, I have a side goal of winning every oval race that we have. So we have Phoenix, Iowa, and, of course, the Freedom 100. So if I could do those three, I'd be, extremely excited. But the guys at Bilardi Auto Racing, they're just an incredible group of people. It's very family feeling. Andretti, I love them. I have a great relationship with Michael still, and he knows that, this was the one opportunity for me to get back in the car. So, it was very respectable from everyone. But the people at Bilardi, I've only been around them as far as a driver for about a month now, and I feel like I've known them my whole life. And there are guys that are just focused on Indy Lights, and they're focused on going out and winning the championship. So, at the end of the day, I think that's really important, and that kind of gets me, even more riled up to go out and win for them because at the end of the day, this is all that we all have. This is our one focus, our main goal, and, I think it's going to be a great year. So, they're definitely helping with the sponsorship. Right now, we haven't been able to say that we have the budget to do a full season. So the team and I are working to try to get the budget to finish up the Indy Lights season. But, they're taking a chance on me to run me for the first, part of the year until we can find something. So I'm very, very thankful for them, doing that for me.
And we're definitely glad to have you back in a car, for whatever we can get you for in 2016, Zach. It's always extremely entertaining, extremely fun to have you in the series. And, we know how excited you are to be able to have that chance again. So definitely glad to have you on the show and wishing you the best of luck and definitely a safe holiday season, too. We're getting close to Christmas, and I'm sure this was as good as any Christmas present you could have gotten this year.
No, it's definitely very special. I have one more item on my wish list, and that's sponsorship for the Indy 500. So we're working really hard to get that, and if that happens, we're setting up for a very memorable year.
It's going to be fun. Always appreciate having you on, Bud. Definitely looking forward to talk to you again here in the future.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night, and thank you for having me on. As always, it means a lot.
That's Zach Veach, and around the turn, we completely shift gears, stay in the racing realm, but we actually get to talk to an award-winning author on his latest book in the motorsports realm, Bones Bosher. Up after this, you're listening to Motorsports Madness here on the Performance Motorsports Network.
Parents, your son or daughter has had their license for a while now, but you want to make sure they're prepared for any situation they may face on the road. High school driver's ed doesn't teach them to drive defensively. They need to be prepared for any highway emergency. For less than a month's insurance, and a whole lot less, BSR instructors at Summit Point Motorsports Park in nearby Summit Point, West Virginia, will teach your son or daughter how to respond instantly and positively to unexpected situations on the road. BSR's specialized accident avoidance training teaches swerve to avoid maneuvers at highway speeds, ocular driving, which focuses driving attention on ways to avoid accidents, vehicle dynamics and feedback, skid control and skid recovery, threshold braking on straights and progressive braking on curves, and off-road recovery techniques. This is stuff driver's ed simply doesn't teach. So call BSR today, 304-725-8444. Give your kid the skill set needed to drive safely and responsibly on the highway. That's 304-725-8444.
You hear that? That's the sound of America's only sports car. That's right, it's a Corvette. But not just any Corvette. It's your Corvette. It's that who cares if there's traffic part of your day. And this can be you when you come to Cooper Corvettes. With 60 years of Corvettes to choose from, there's always a Corvette in your budget. And they'll service any Corvette you bring in. Cooper Corvettes on Route 1 just north of Quantico and Triangle. Call, click, or visit CooperCorvettes.com.
We're growing like crazy and need account reps who know their way around agencies, the internet, and social media. Got connections? Or do you know how to get to the decision makers? Are you fearless? We need you. Internet radio, or as we call it, wireless mobile radio, is rapidly becoming the place to be with almost limitless income potential. So contact us to get involved with the fastest growing professionally produced group of internet radio stations in the world. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444. That's 717-749-0444. Or you can email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. You want to ask for Sue.
Hi, this is John Ondrasik of Five for Fighting, here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. You know, style is a personal thing, and your lifestyle is your business. But if you take it on the road, it becomes everybody's business. So please, plan ahead, designate before you celebrate. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
A public service announcement brought to you by RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Time to get back to tonight's Motorsports Madness. Here are the only three of a kind that beats a full house. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Magda.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on a Monday night here on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports. Tom Baker and Jacob Seelman with you. Kyle Magda off today. We are talking racing, and we're going to be talking reading here for a few minutes. I always love when a new motorsports book comes out, especially around the holidays, because one of the only times of year I get to really stop for any length of time and do some serious reading happens over the last couple of weeks of the year when I go home and want to spend time with family, and you just have that time to kind of kick back with a good book and get some rest and enjoy some quality reading. And we've got an award-winning motorsports author on the line with us. His name is Bones Bosher, and we are welcoming Bones back to the show. We talked with him a year or two ago when the book came out on Bentley Warren, and Bones has written several great books, one on Richie Evans, just a number of different books. And I'm curious, Bones, let's just get right to it. Talk a little bit about this latest book, because this book details three of the all-time motorsports greats, Mario Andretti, AJ Foyt, and Richard Petty. Tell me, where did the genesis for this book come from? Where did the idea come from? And talk a little bit about how this all came together.
Well, first, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
The genesis was just that, we've all gotten caught up over the years in these little debates or barroom arguments about who the best driver is of all time. And I've always kind of thought that was a kind of a foolish game, because you can never compare different eras and different equipment and different series and so on. But it's, something we all do to try to pass the off season, as you were just saying, try to entertain ourselves. And it struck me quite a while back that while it was impossible to figure out who the greatest driver was, it wasn't impossible to think about who the most important drivers were. And I came to the conclusion long ago that the three most important American drivers of all time were A.J. Foyt, Mario Andretti, and Richard Petty. Not just for this reason, but mainly because, first off, they're three very different people, but they were all peaking just at about the time in the 60s when the media, and I mean not just the racing papers in every corner of the country, but national racing media and national sports media, started really spreading the word about racing, and the three careers of these guys kind of rode the wave of that media. And you can't discount how good they were, how great they were behind the wheel, but timing was a lot. The fact that they were three very different personalities was important. If you identified in a John Wayne type, A.J. Foyt was your guy. If you liked a smiling guy that was always good with the media, Richard Petty was a guy. If you were kind of the spirit of, the true little guy, the American dream come true, ironically enough, the immigrant in the bunch is Mario. But he started from further down than these guys and kind of carved out that American dream that we all think about. And really, I think what makes them the most important three of all time is if you were growing up through the 60s, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, if your neighbor or your postman or the guy pumping your gas only knew three race drivers' names, these were probably them. So I just, it's a book that's been in my head for a long time, but didn't start writing it until about a year and a half ago, and was quite pleased with the way it came out, actually.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it, and I'm curious as to how much conversation you actually had with the three drivers as you were writing the book. And can you talk a little bit, maybe share one funnier or poignant story from those conversations, or something that sort of stuck out to you as you were putting it together?
Well, it's not just while I was writing this book. I mean, I've interviewed all of those guys over the years multiple times. Richard, probably the least, ironically, despite the fact that I have done a lot of stock car coverage. But I've been at Petty Enterprises a couple of times, and I've interviewed them at racetracks as well. Foyt and Andretti, I've interviewed both of those guys for magazine stories and for different projects I was working on. But just, the stories of their upbringings is really incredible. Foyt's father, Tony Sr., was a midget car owner whose equipment was good but not great, by all accounts. And they came from next to nothing. They weren't poor or destitute by any means, but they were very blue collar. The father owned an auto repair business with another fellow who drove his midget. And AJ, from a young age, just decided that this was what he wanted to do. This was his only calling. And ultimately, at age 12 or so, he goes on a trip to the Midwest with Dale Burt, who was the driver of that midget. The father kind of let him go, 12, 13 years old, I guess, kind of let him go just on a summer vacation thing when he was off of school. And AJ saw, what these professional racers lived like. And what I mean professional racers, I mean the midget guys at the time and the sprint car guys at the time that ran all the fairgrounds tracks and so on. And that was a life that just captivated him. And he decided that this was for him. And, all three of these guys have interesting parallels. I mean, they came from nothing. They all began in the late 50s, peaked in the early 60s, kind of, right around 64, you get Richard Petty having the year that gives him the nickname King Richard. Foyt winning his second Indy 500, which was, to win one is big. To win two puts you in rare territory. And Mario getting his first IndyCar ride that same year. Then in 67, Foyt wins a third Indy 500, which at the time was equal to most anybody had won. Mario starts the year by winning the Daytona 500, and Petty concludes the year by winning 27, NASCAR at the time Grand National races, what we now know as Cup. So, I mean, it's just this incredible convergence of accomplishments throughout their careers.
Yeah.
Mario and AJ obviously raced a lot together because they concentrated on Indy cars, but also dabbled in other things. Richard stuck to the NASCAR races, but both of those guys crossed over enough that the three of them got to know each other, very well. And like I said, despite the fact that they were very different people, I think they carried the ball for the sport a long way.
Bones, I'm curious, for anybody that picks up this book, what do you want the readers that sit down and go through this to be able to take away from it, or be able to gather from what you tried to put in the pages? And then talk a little bit too about how anybody who might be listening can go out and pick up their copy.
I'll answer the second question first, just because it's the freshest in my memory. It's www.coastal181.com. That's the publisher, Coastal 181. www.coastal181.com. What I'd like the reader to see, number one, the younger reader, I'd like them to understand why these three names have lived as long as they have, why they resonate with people even today. I mean, you walk through Gasoline Alley at Indianapolis or the garage area at Daytona. When Richard Petty comes along or Foyt or Mario comes along, there's a different buzz in the air. You know, people start elbowing each other, you know, even as much or more so than they do for the current stars. I mean, these three legends, and I don't just mean the people, I mean the legends that they created, have lived on so long. And what I try to do is explain why that is. I mean, each of these guys was very identifiable. Like I said, no matter which personality type you were, you could identify with one of these guys, if not all three of them at different times. And the other thing I'd like people to know is just that it wasn't easy for these guys. You know, you see guys today, and I'm not one of those folks that say, you know, racing today isn't what it used to be or any of that. I don't like to get caught up in a generational divide. But you do have young kids today, you know, at 14, 15, 18 years old, plotting their racing futures with some degree of certainty. You know, I'm going to be in a K&N car by this age, or an Indy Lights car, or an Indy car, or an Xfinity Series car. In Foyt's day and in Andretti's day and in Richard's day, there were no guarantees. There was no clear roadmap. Even it was to some degree jumping into whatever you could, and then making the most of that. You know, that's what led to the next opportunity. The Petty case was slightly different because Lee Petty had obviously started Petty Enterprises, and they were already a very successful NASCAR team when Richard got there. But then Lee got hurt early in the going, you know, early in Richard's own driving career, and Richard had to carry the ball by himself. You know, with Mario, it was a matter of kind of not stumbling from ride to ride, but again, just kind of taking whatever came his way and trying to turn enough heads in sometimes inferior equipment to lead to something better.
Sure.
In Foyt's case, again, you know, AJ had his dad's car to lean back on for a little while, but then it was picking up a sprint car ride and going to the fairground circuit in the upper Midwest that really put him on the map. You know, he won some races up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Fargo, North Dakota, and you know, those were the Indy 500s almost of outlaw-type sprint car racing at the time, and that put him on the map with, you know, what became USAC sprint car owners and IndyCar people and things like that. So, I mean, for none of these guys was there any kind of a definitive plan like what you see today. It was just do the best you can, try to survive through a deadly era, and this book does have some danger and death in it because that was part of the times. And then just try to make the most of the opportunities that came your way. And here we are 20 years after all of them retired from driving, and they still are, in my mind, the three biggest names. You know, I thought about including
I agree, 100%.
I thought about including Dale Earnhardt in this book just because, although he was a generation behind these guys, he obviously ascended to a certain pedestal in a lot of people's minds. But what kind of talked me out of it was that when I interviewed Dale at the end of '94, specifically about Richard Petty, because now they both had 7 championships, and I interviewed Petty specifically about Earnhardt, kind of a Richard on Dale and Dale on Richard thing. And Dale kept saying, on the record and even off the record when we were done talking, you know, don't put me in a league with Petty. You know, Richard is the king. You know, I'm not him. And as I went back and started sort of preparing for this book that had been bouncing around in my head for a while, listening to those playbacks of Earnhardt and then going over the notes that I made during that interview, I just, right then I said, you know, it's not a book about 4 guys, it's a book about 3 guys, and that's it. And then from that, we built down the Trinity theme and so on.
I was going to say, I think the title is extremely apt here. It is Foyt, Andretti, Petty, America's Racing Trinity, and it is available from Coastal 181, COASTAL, Coastal 181 Publishing. Just look them up. You can order it right through their website, and they've got bunches of great racing books, DVDs, so lots of great Christmas ideas there on that site. And Bones, we want to thank you for taking some time to come on again and talk with us about this newest book, and we certainly hope it sells very well for you, and we look forward to having you on again sometime over the winter when we can just go into more depth with some of the stories, because I'd love to hear them.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm glad to do my part to give you some holiday reading.
Well, I've always admired your writing, Bones. You know that, and I always appreciated the chance to work with you back in the Trackside Magazine days. And so I certainly wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and look forward to talking to you over the winter.
Thanks, Tom, and the same to both of you.
That is Bones Bosher. And again, Coastal 181 Publishing for all of the racing books that Bones has written, and also just a lot of great books on that site. So go check it out. With that, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to talk some dirt track racing. How apropos after talking about AJ Foyt's early years, we're going to talk dirt track here on Motorsports Madness. You're listening to our Monday Night Motorsports Madness show on Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Media sales professionals with agency experience. If you're frustrated with your current position, unrealistic quotas, and inept management, if you're a sales machine and you simply will not take no as an acceptable reply, if you're looking for a rapidly growing company with unlimited sales potential for commissions in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you're searching for a high-tech, forward-looking, laid-back, but extremely professional organization who appreciate your skills and dedication, we have your next opportunity. Scorpion Radio Group is building a sales team of self-starters who are motivated. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444 or email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. That's 717-749-0444 and ask for Sue.
You hear that? That's the sound of America's only sports car. That's right, it's a Corvette. But not just any Corvette. It's your Corvette. It's that who cares if there's traffic part of your day. And this can be you when you come to Cooper Corvettes. With 60 years of Corvettes to choose from, there's always a Corvette in your budget. And they'll service any Corvette you bring in. Cooper Corvettes on Route 1 just north of Quantico and Triangle. Call, click, or visit coopercorvettes.com.
How to deal with someone who says that's so gay. Outsmart them.
This party is like so gay. Totally.
Excuse me, but did you ladies know the word gay used to mean happy or excited? Then it became a word used to describe gay people. Then somehow it came to mean dumb or stupid, which is how you just used it, which is not very nice.
Ew, that guy is on the football team and super smart, and he totally hates us now. Totally.
When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off. Learn more at thinkbeforeyouspeak.com.
Hi, the kids. It's time to get dirty on Speed77 Radio's Motorsports Madness. Here are your hosts, Jacob, Tom, and Kyle, with Turn 5 Live's curator of Casa de Pork Chop, Stephen Oven.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness. Going to talk some dirt track racing. Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker with you here on the Performance Motorsports Network. And silly season has been very much abound. A lot of things happening, a lot of things changing. We're going to get to Steve-O in just a moment, Tom. But before we do that, I want to talk to you. And actually, I think we just found old Steve-O. So
Steve-O has arrived.
Steve-O has arrived, and hopefully with pork chops.
He's slowly migrating inside the Southern Speedway studios.
Steve, do you have pork chops?
No pork chops tonight, but a nice chicken and rice bake. How's that sound?
I'll take that.
I'll make mine a double.
Anyway.
And toss in a little broccoli for flavor.
There you go.
You can keep your trees. Anyway, let's talk dirt track racing before we get too sidetracked here, boys. Steve-O, silly season's been abound. Last week on this show, we were talking about Matt Shepard being out of a ride at Henke Baldwin Racing. And now, this week, you talk about Billy Decker being out and Stuart Friesen going in over at Halmar, and chaos and conundrums around the entire New York dirt racing scene. I mean, what do you make of all this? First, we have a gypsum car open, then we have Stewie going over to Halmar, and everybody got all surprised at that for some reason. I'm still trying to figure out why everybody was so shocked at that. It's just
some of us thought that's where Decker was going.
Well, there is that.
So we talked for 2 segments about Matt Shepard last week. Then roll around on Tuesday, Jacob, and we find out that Billy Decker no longer going to be at Gypsum. You find out Stuart Friesen headed, essentially going to be under the same operation. It's just going to bring all of these resources that he has had together under one roof under the Halmar name, and that's going to give him resources to even extend and kind of embellish what they've already had. Then you've got the news that Ransomville Speedway is changing ownership. Then you get the news that, honestly, there was so much that happened last week that it was at times hard to keep up with. But amongst all of the silly season news that has come about this week, I do want to mention that I do still have a set of driving gloves. I still have a helmet, and I am on the free agent market if any dirt teams are looking for a driver for 2016.
Send resumes to John White, care of Gypsum Express.
Have helmet, will travel.
That's exactly right. Now, what I want to know is, we've got GoPro technology for video. How can we hook up the audio recorder so you can be commentating on the race as you're actually racing in it, so that you can divide that up into segments for the Turn 5 live show on Tuesday nights?
Something tells me, for as long as I've been out of behind the wheel, Tom, there's probably not a lot of that audio we'd be able to play on the air.
Yeah,
but
we do try to keep these shows family friendly.
That's true. But back to your point, Jacob, just all sorts of news last week. I'll start with Billy Decker. It's just crazy to think that the 2 top drivers for the past 2 seasons on the Super Dirt Car Series still do not have a ride right now. Certainly, Matt Shepard has had some other priorities the past week. Congratulations to Matt and his now wife, Beth Ann, as they got married in Cancun, Mexico over the weekend. So now Matt is going to start firming up his plans, and I don't think that's going to take very long. I think the big decision for Matt is going to be right now, does he start his own team, or does he try and team up with somebody else? And we went through that last week. As far as Billy Decker goes, though, this is interesting because there's a lot of whispers out here in the Northeast that this could be it for Billy Decker. He's got a flourishing business, which is taking a lot of his time, and it's been rumored that Decker may want to take a step back to focus on the business and spend more time with family, and nobody could blame him for wanting to do so if he did that. But I can't see Billy Decker just walking away. I really think that if he could find a ride that maybe was just the Super Dirt Car Series, but the problem with that idea is if you're going to run the Super Dirt Car Series and want to contend for a title, you have to have a home track. Now, would that mean that Decker, teams up with somebody to run the Super Dirt Car Series and just runs Albany, Saratoga, which is closer to his home on Friday nights? Maybe that could happen. It seems like everybody and their brother is headed to Orange County Fair Speedway on Saturday nights, and they just announced over the weekend that their main event for the big blocks on Saturday nights is going to pay $3,500 to win. And
wow.
If you know anything about purses with the dirt modifieds up in the Northeast, that's probably double what is typical for an A-main winner here in the Northeast, certainly in Central New York anyway. And so, there's a lot of moving pieces with the Billy Decker situation. And I think the first obvious big moving piece is, does Billy want to continue on? And if he decided to hang up the helmet, guys, let's be honest, this guy has done it all. He has won Super Dirt Car Series championships. He's won track championships at all of the different weekly tracks that he's competed in. He was the guy who transformed the Syracuse race toward fuel mileage and strategy. him and Scott Jeffries, who has been his longtime crew chief, those were the guys who turned the chapter at Syracuse. And Tom, I know you were there for a lot of those races up at Syracuse.
Yes, sir.
And again, this is a driver who will be, whenever he comes up available to, be admitted into the Dirt Hall of Fame. He'll be as you guys say in the NASCAR world, he'll be the first time he comes up, he'll be a first class, first ballot Hall of Famer. There's nothing else, I don't think, that Billy Decker really has to prove. So if he decided that now was the time, nobody could blame him for that.
Nobody could. And there's a lot more, Steve, that we can talk about on the other side of this break, and we will get to that coming up after this. Another segment of Dirt Track Conversation is next. You're listening to Motorsports Madness here on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsport.
You own a performance car and you know how to drive, but you want to learn real performance driving. Well, Bunky, get that car off the street and onto the track. Summit Point Motorsports Park, the Mid-Atlantic's premier road racing facility, located just over an hour from D.C. in nearby Summit Point, West Virginia, is the place to go. And you'll find that Friday at the track is going to give you what you need. For less than a monthly car payment, you can attend this regularly scheduled one-day instructional event in your street car on one of Summit Point's 3 world-class road racing circuits. You'll receive classroom instruction, skid pad instruction in their cars, including front and rear skid control, and 4 20-minute in-your-car instructional sessions from a professional instructor. Have fun, go fast, and really learn how to drive. Call 304-725-8444 for class schedules and details. That's 304-725-8444. Friday at the track at Summit Point Motorsports Park.
Every 30 minutes, another innocent person is killed due to a drunk driver.
My best friend.
My brother.
My poor grandchild.
My sister.
My father.
My husband.
My mom. My mommy.
Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I built my life around you.
Stop these tragedies before they happen. Don't drink and drive.
The Performance Motorsports Network is a compilation of shows about motorsports. From technical to controversial to just fun, everything you like about racing and gearhead stuff is right here on one internet channel. The Performance Motorsports Network. Tell your friends about it.
Hi, I'm Reed Sorensen. Racing has been a part of me and my family for as long as I can remember. I had to make tough choices early on to get to the top. It took hard work and dedication, but it's those tough choices that helped me prepare for challenges I would face as a cup driver. Make the right choices today and be ready for the challenges tomorrow. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
We now return you to 2.5 Men on Speed77 Radio's Motorsports Madness on the Performance Motorsports Network.
As they say on the Twitterverse, #math. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, Steve Ovens, and I am most certainly the half in this equation as we welcome you back to the madness. Kyle Magda is off this evening. And Steve-O, we're talking dirt. We were talking about Billy Decker a little bit. Now I want your opinion on the Stuart Friesen move and how big this is going to be as far as pooling the resources with Halmar International into that organization and giving Stewie finally that long-awaited shot to run for a Super Dirt Car Series championship that I 100% believe he can win next year.
Yeah, I agree. This Friesen to Halmar team deal is huge. And it should be very concerning to all of the drivers on the Super Dirt Car Series, on the Short Track Super Series, the Race of Champions, Dirt Modified, you name it. Everybody is now been put on notice because the resources that have now been pooled together for Stuart Friesen's efforts is going to be quite incredible. He has not really had a good opportunity to run for the Super Dirt Car Series title since about 2007. The last time he really was able to make a run for it, he was teamed up with a team out of the North Country up near Canada with Dave Thompson Motorsports, and they mid-season decided to go with Danny Johnson, the doctor, over Friesen. And since then, Friesen's really never had a good opportunity to run on the series. Now, he's going to have a great opportunity here with Halmar. He'll be pooling the resources of the Jeff Daly team, which he has been racing for the past few seasons. It'll also pool together some resources from Tad Parks, who Friesen has teamed up with to race at Fonda and won the past, seems like a handful of championships. So now you get all those resources pulled together. You've got Halmar's support. All of the cars will be maintained at Friesen's shop with his wife Jessica at Sprakers, New York. And while we're talking about those two, I want to send a congratulations out to them as well on the birth of their child Parker here within the last week. So the Shepard and crew got married, and the Friesens and Zemkins brought a new baby into the world. So congratulations to those guys. But yeah, as far as Friesen in the series goes, right now their biggest question right now is where are they going to race for home track points to apply toward the series. Albany Saratoga would certainly be a good option for them on Friday night if Orange County Fair Speedway doesn't get the dirt car sanction for 2016. Now, the part of this Halmar deal is that Friesen will race at Orange County each and every Saturday night. And as we learned the other day, they'll be racing for $3,500 to win on a weekly basis. So the question will become, does Orange County go back under the dirt car banner? If so, Friesen would then be able to just race one night a week, which by the sounds of things is what he would like to do, Jacob, is race one night a week. That will allow them to focus on the midweek shows. And we know how many of these midweek shows that they have just been dominant at in the last couple seasons. So be interesting to see what happens there, because if they can just do one night a weekend and focus on the midweek stuff, they're going to be pretty potent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. I'll throw you a zinger here, Steve, because you brought something up that has been on my mind over the last couple of days, and I'm glad you mentioned it. So I offer you this. Does, in your opinion, the hard clay go back to dirt car sanction next year? And if they do, what do you think the tipping factor is to that?
Well, I guess my opinion there would be, I think it's all really dependent on what the managers of the Speedway and their big backer Halmar wants to do. I think that's going to be a driving factor, and the fact that Friesen is driving for them now, that could be an even bigger factor, because I don't think they want to race. Stewart certainly would rather race one night a weekend than two. So that would certainly save him a trip going to Albany, Saratoga on Friday nights. And, some folks may think that there's more to it than just that. But honestly, guys, I think that's really what it could come down to.
Fair enough. I'll buy that. And, I tend to agree with you. The money talks at the end of the day, and the money foot in the bill talks at the end of the day. So I want to shift gears now to the national scene, Steve-O, and talk for a couple of minutes about one of the big announcements that it was actually a couple of weeks ago before Thanksgiving, but this is really the first good opportunity we've had to break it down in depth a little bit. The full World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series schedule is going to come out this week during the PRI show, the Performance Racing Industry Show in Indianapolis. And while we don't have that full schedule just yet, we did get the first 3 months of the World of Outlaws schedule here right before Thanksgiving, the Go West kickoff, as they call it. We know the season starts with Dirt Car Nationals February 12th through the 14th at Volusia, and then we go west. The last weekend in February, you've got to return to Royal Purple Raceway in Baytown, Texas, maybe more famously known for the NHRA drag strip that's on that property. You've got the dirt track at Las Vegas, the Thursday and Friday of NASCAR weekend out there. You've got Thunderbolt Raceway in Tulare that following weekend, a 2-day show at the Stockton Dirt Track the third weekend in March. You've got the Wednesday show on March 23rd at Placerville Speedway that Brad Sweet is putting on. You've got a return to Ocean Speedway in Watsonville, and of course the Mini Gold Cup at Chico the first weekend in April. You've got Calistoga, Bakersfield, Paris Auto, USA Raceway in Tucson, and then of course the conclusion to the Go West kickoff tour the second to last weekend in April at Devil's Bowl Speedway for the Devil's Bowl Outlaw Nationals. Steve, there are some fantastic dirt tracks out on the West Coast that are on this first 3 months of the Outlaws schedule here in 2016. I want to circle two that I'm really excited about, and then you can kind of give me your thoughts on this. I love, at the very end of February, Royal Purple Raceway coming back on the schedule for the first time in quite some time. First time since 2011. And then Bakersfield. 10 years it's been since they've been to Bakersfield, one of the home tracks that's very close to former Sprint Cup champion Kevin Harvick's heart. I just think this is fantastic for the Outlaws to get back to some of these historic tracks on the schedule and pull in some of the favorites, your Silver Dollars, your Paris Autos, Devil's Bowl, of course, always a fan favorite.
Well, I think anytime you can add tracks to the schedule, or in these two cases, bring tracks back that haven't been on the tour in several years, I think that just shows the momentum and the positive mojo that the World of Outlaws have on their side right now. Even with a series that's been dominated, in recent years by Donnie Schatz, I still think that these guys are doing very well. And when the series is doing well, these tracks, circle the series like the World of Outlaws and say, we need to have them at our racetrack. And when tracks are doing that for the series, it's good for the series, it's good for the tracks. And quite frankly, guys, I think it's good for the drivers, because the more diversity of tracks and going back to places that they haven't been to, I think that's going to make for a really good show, because a lot of these teams, they may have notes that, like we just said, maybe 5 years old in the case of Royal Purple Raceway, and maybe as old as 10 years old for Bakersfield. And when you've got notes that are 10 years old, 10, I think the trend there is maybe those notes aren't so good.
Very true. And, I want to make one more tie-in here with two of these dates, Steve. The last race in February at Royal Purple Raceway and the last race in March at Placerville Speedway. Both of those events going to be self-promoted by drivers very close to the industry. Of course, we saw the Placerville date presented by and promoted by Brad Sweet, one of the full-time drivers on the Outlaws Tour, driving for Casey Kane Racing. He will take on that role again here in 2016 at Placerville, but announced earlier today the February 27th date at Royal Purple Raceway going to be promoted by Brad Sweet's car owner and boss, Casey Kane, going to be putting on that show in Baytown. He's going to have a meet and greet prior to the event. But, you talk about these guys, and both Kane and Sweet, very passionate about sprint car racing, passionate about the Outlaws. And I just think it's great that Woo is, allowing these guys to come in and help them put on a great show, and trusting that these guys know what they're doing and they can help us deliver a fantastic product to the fans in these markets.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that this shows the like you said, the passion that these drivers have for the World of Outlaws. And as far as the World of Outlaws are concerned, I mean, from a series perspective, I mean, that's a slam dunk when you can get a not only one of your owners on the series, but a driver at the Sprint Cup level to promote these shows. That certainly brings a certain group of fans into the show. And you've got to have good crowds, you've got to have good participation for some of these shows to go over. I mean, that's just a no-brainer, and I think it's great that the drivers continue to do so. Not only Sprint Cup drivers like Tony or like a Casey Kane, but even World of Outlaws drivers themselves, like Brad Sweet. In the event that he put on here this past season, I think that's a really great thing. And before my time is up with you guys tonight, Tom and Jacob, I wanted to send a fond farewell to the Friesen family. As we were talking earlier, they sold the Ransomville Speedway. Made it official on December 1st, and
yes,
Tom, that's a legacy that's 42 years in the making.
Yeah, I was 6 when when they started there, and of course I didn't have a chance to attend the track until after I was out of high school and started doing the media thing up in New York, and actually went there the first time for an ESS sprint car race. But they are just awesome people, and they really put their heart and soul and their passion into it as a family for 4 decades, and it was truly one of my favorite tracks to go to. Even went there for a go-kart race one time, and just a great racing family up there in that area, and had the chance to spend some time with them even at Niagara Falls when both Stuart and James Michael were running the TQ midgets there on some of those legendary indoor TQ weekends up there at the Falls before they stopped doing it at the convention center there. So yeah, Ransomville is definitely going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. But I know that the Friesens will make sure it remains in good hands, and remains one of the top dirt tracks there in the Northeast. And so definitely some sad news, but happy to see that it's going to continue to operate.
My parting thought, gentlemen, tonight is the Friesen family made a commitment to go-kart racing, just like the Oswego Speedway has made go-kart racing at the Oswego Kartway a priority. And when you have a successful go-kart program that only feeds and brings even more fans and eyeballs, and I hope that that's a trend that we start seeing nationwide.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think it's a trend that we do, as you said, Steve, need to see more of and hope to see more of here in the years to come in motorsports. As always, have fun having you on. And I know your guys' episode of Turn 5 Live this week, you taped a lot of it at the Weedsport Banquet, I believe it was, over the weekend, Steve-O. So we'll look forward to that on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Oh yeah, going to have a lot of good content from the Woodhall Raceway. A lot of drivers. Even had a great segment with the owner and promoter. So a lot to look forward to tomorrow night.
Weedsport Woodhull. It's the Finger Lakes, and I had a W right. I was
that's
close.
Right.
We'll take
guys.
a break. We're gonna circle back around to the Snowball Derby, a subject that I know a little bit more on after this, and talk with the man who sat on the pole and came home a career best 3rd in the 48th annual Snowball Derby. Ty Majeski, a Wisconsinite, joins us after this here on the Performance Motorsports Network. You're listening to Motorsports Madness.
Okay, so Sarah, I'm dropping you off at Emily's?
Yep.
And Josh, you're going to?
Soccer, Dad. Soccer practice.
Right. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know when I pick you both up, I'll be wearing my short shorts.
What? No!
Yep, and my dorky dad hat, and I'm gonna do my dad dance for all your friends. They'll love it!
Seriously? Why?
Because I like my short shorts. Of course, I could be talked out of it if you guys would just buckle up your seatbelts without giving me a hard time.
It's important to get your kids to buckle up for safety, no matter what it takes. And sometimes, all it takes is your parental powers of persuasion.
Okay, we're buckling up. See, all buckled.
Good choice. I'll just have to do my dad dance at dinner time. What?
No!
Do what you have to make sure your kids are wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
Parents, your son or daughter has had their license for a while now, but you want to make sure they're prepared for any situation they may face on the road. High school driver's ed doesn't teach them to drive defensively. They need to be prepared for any highway emergency. For less than a month's insurance and a whole lot less, BSR instructors at Summit Point Motorsports Park in nearby Summit Point, West Virginia, will teach your son or daughter how to respond instantly and positively to unexpected situations on the road. BSR's specialized accident avoidance training teaches swerve to avoid maneuvers at highway speeds, ocular driving, which focuses driving attention on ways to avoid accidents, vehicle dynamics and feedback, skid control and skid recovery, threshold braking on straights and progressive braking on curves, and off-road recovery techniques. This is stuff driver's ed simply doesn't teach. So call BSR today, 304-725-8444. Give your kid the skill set needed to drive safely and responsibly on the highway. That's 304-725-8444.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat?
Don't assume you know it all when it comes to car seats for your child. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat and know for sure. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network. Now back to Jacob, Tom, and Kyle on Motorsports Madness.
Welcome back here to PMN, the voice of motorsports, in this round of Motorsports Madness. About a half hour to go. Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker here at the Race Chaser Roundtable with you. Kyle Magda is off tonight, and we started the show talking about a little bit of the Snowball Derby, and we're going to circle back around to the Snowball Derby now and talk with the driver who sat on the pole, set a new track record at Five Flags Speedway, and was in contention all day long to fight for a top five. Couldn't quite get the win, but Ty Majeski, a native Wisconsinite, joins us on the Race Chaser hotline now. And Ty, you led close to 70 laps early in the race, and just when you got shuffled out on pit stops, could never quite get back to the lead, but you had speed all race long. I mean, were you happy with the way this turned out? Because I think by far this was the most competitive we've seen you in any of your prior Derby starts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, what a difference a year makes. Last year I spun out in qualifying and had to make the race through the last chance race, and we really just never had the bounce of the car right. And this year we came down there. We practiced the Saturday before the Derby, had really, really good speed in the car. We've had really good race cars this whole season. I think we really gained on what we had 2 years ago. And it was really good to come down here and show that. And went out and qualified second, but Christopher Bell got disqualified, got the track record in fast time. Not the way I wanted it, but I guess the rules are the rules, and it's a really cool thing to have on my resume for now. And in the race, we had really good speed early on, really the whole race, and we just lost some track position on pit road. And this track is so abrasive to tires, and I had to burn my stuff up to get some track position back early on in the run. And once I got there, I really just my stuff was too burnt up to really capitalize and retake the lead. But overall, a really, really good Snowball Derby for us.
How important was track position, Ty, during this race? I mean, you talk about 300 laps at the Derby. It seems like a lot of time, but you mentioned how abrasive Five Flags is, and I know a lot of you guys have said to us over the last couple of years that it really does make it tough to pass unless you've just got a dynamite race car.
Yeah, we had a really good race car, and we were able to come, I think, we were, out after a lot of the pit stops, we were 14th, 16th, 18th position, and each and every time we made our way up and at least close to the top five, and, it showed the speed that we had in our car. But it's definitely huge, on that last restart with 25 to go, or 30 to go or whatever it was, we restarted 16th. That really just dug ourselves in a big hole to really go up there and contend for the win.
You contended early, you got back towards the front late, come home, finished third, like we said, your best Snowball Derby finish to date. I mean, how much does it mean to you to have a performance like this at the Derby where you and everybody that's around you knows so many big eyes, big names are watching? I mean, it can be, depending on the way circumstances turn out, a career-making day if you can go out and have success at this race because of how important this race is to everybody in the racing community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this thing is watched nationwide. The biggest short track race in the country. Like you said, guys, there's a lot of guys' careers that started right here at the Snowball Derby and made names for themselves right here in this race. So it was really big for me to go out there and set fast time and get all that publicity and make some noise through the race. I think we were one of the more watched cars coming through the field each and every run, and hopefully opened up some people's eyes.
Talk a little bit about that race in terms of from the driver's seat, Ty, because, Jacob and I sit here, and I've done a few radio shows over the last week pre-promoting it and doing different things. And, we sit here as media folk and we try to describe it, but we talked about Five Flags Speedway being a cheese grater. I mean, it just eats tires like crazy. Talk a little bit about what it's like from the driver's seat in a race where, 37 guys start this race, or 37 drivers. I think I should be appropriately PC here. 37 drivers start this race, and each of you are almost all-star in quality in your own right. So it's 37 almost equal talents and 37 really good race cars. How do you get from the back to the front? What is it like from the driver's seat to run a race of this magnitude, knowing what it can do for your career if you end up going to victory lane here?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, qualifying day is the most nerve-wracking day, that you'll ever really experience in motorsports. It's just so tough. There's 70 cars trying to make a 30-car field on time. Nobody wants to, run that last chance Saturday night. They all want to sleep well on Friday and come up with a good plan for race trim adjustments for the big race on Sunday. It's just so tough, and it was such a relief for me on Friday night just knowing that I was in the race, and it was a really good feeling for sure. And yeah, I mean, and once you get in the race, it's so much different than anything that I really run. I wasn't running 100% till that last restart with 35 to go because this track is so abrasive on tires. You see times fall off, a second or even more throughout a 50, 60, 70 lap run. It's just, something that I don't experience too much in the racetracks up in the Midwest. And it was definitely a learning curve for me a little bit, just maintaining my tires, keeping brakes in the car and trying to keep the right rear as cool as possible, knowing that we have to make, the upwards of 80 laps on that set of tires. So, we were forced to really maintain and pace myself throughout the race. So I had a race car there with that last restart with 35 to go.
You mentioned that a lot of your racing happens in the Midwest. You're from Wisconsin, and for some of our fans that may not know you or know your racing resume, you're coming off a season in which you won your second ARCA Midwest Tour Championship in your iRacing number 91 Ford. I mean, talk a little bit about your season on that side of things, because the last 2 years, two championships you won a year ago, backed it up with another title this year. It's just been kind of a stellar run, and I think this year, if there were any doubts about your performance last year being a fluke, you guys went out and completely erased them because you guys dominated most of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we've had really, really good race cars. Toby and all the guys at TM Motorsports do a great job putting great race cars under me, and the communication between my crew chief, Toby Noodleman, and I has just been astronomical in the last year and a half or so. We communicate really well. I know what I need to tell him, to get what I want in the race car, and I know what the car needs to feel like at the beginning of the race to have good longevity in it throughout the race. And we just built on each other really in a big way these last 8 months. We've had awesome race cars ever since really mid-July. We hit on something, and the race cars have just been phenomenal, and the communication between my team and I has made it that much better. And we have a lot of fun doing it, that's for sure.
You had fun, and I know you're having fun trying to build some plans for next year as well. What does the landscape look like? I know, the Derby performance is great to end the year on, but, what have you guys got in the works, or are you guys hoping that the performance you put down over the weekend can get you something into the works for next year?
A little bit of both. We don't have anything set in stone yet. We're looking for opportunities, of course, to move up to the next level in racing, whether it's ARCA, two truck races, or whatever it may be. That's ultimately my goal. And the phone's open. We're looking for new opportunities every day, and If nothing comes about, we'll be super late model racing again in 2016. But hopefully something will come through for us.
Well, obviously, all the success you've had of late isn't possible without a lot of supporters and people that I'm sure you need to thank, Ty, and we like to give you a chance to do that. Who makes it happen for you in this 91 bunch?
Yeah, I can't thank, all the guys at iRace enough. They really supported me a lot here in the last year or so, and looking forward to continuing that relationship into 2016. My car owners, Brad and Nancy Manstead, they do a lot for me. They built 2 brand new race cars the last 2 years for me, and we've just had astronomical success together and had a lot of fun doing it. All the guys back at the shop at Team On Motorsports, Toby Noodleman, and everybody that touches that race car, they do a phenomenal job, and it definitely makes my life a lot easier. And, of course, my parents, they do a lot for me, too, flying me all these different places throughout the off-season and support me through school, and they make a lot of sacrifices a lot of weekends throughout the year, and it means a lot to me.
Well, we always enjoy having you on the show, and I think definitely where you're at this year is a far cry from when you and I talked in the pit area at Charlotte last October. So, definitely glad to be able to talk about you having success at the Derby, and looking forward to hearing you get some plans together for 2016 so we can have you back on the show to talk about it.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.
That's Ty Majeski,
Thanks,
and
Ty.
as we continue it on, we're going to have one more segment, the white flag, coming when we come back. We'll wrap up the conversation and conclude this round of Motorsports Madness right after this. You're listening to the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports.
Do you love the sound of high-revving motors and the smell of burning rubber? Do you want to get your car sideways right at the ragged edge of control? If you've always wanted to try drifting or learn to improve your drifting skills, Summit Point Motorsports Park, the Mid-Atlantic's premier motorsports facility, has the expert instructors and the specialized track to teach you how to drift and the skills necessary to drift competitively. From skid pad to open sessions, Summit Point Motorsports Park has the safe and open environment that allows drifters of all skill levels, new to intermediate, to get sideways and smoking. With a focus on safety and the skill set necessary to drift competitively, Summit Point Motorsports Park's Drift Nirvana is just the thing for you. Call for your reservation today, 304-725-8444. Or for more information, go online, summitpoint-raceway.com, or you can email them at office@bsrinc.com. Drift Nirvana, getting you sideways the right way.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes
In
me.
biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash. The only thing I didn't learn in school today...
The only thing I didn't learn today...
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
Media sales professionals with agency experience. If you're frustrated with your current position, unrealistic quotas, and inept management, if you're a sales machine and you simply will not take no as an acceptable reply, if you're looking for a rapidly growing company with unlimited sales potential for commissions in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you're searching for a high-tech, forward-looking, laid-back, but extremely professional organization who appreciate your skills and dedication, we have your next opportunity. Scorpion Radio Group is building a sales team of self-starters who are motivated. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444 or email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. That's 717-749-0444 and ask for Sue.
COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, is a lung disease that robs people of their ability to breathe. As many as 24 million Americans suffer from COPD, also known as chronic bronchitis or emphysema, and half of them don't know they have the disease. If you or someone you love is over 35 and has smoked more than 100 cigarettes in their lifetime, visit driveforcopd.org and take the screener, then take that to your doctor. I'm Jeff Stoltz, and I drive for COPD.
Time to get back to tonight's Motorsports Madness. Here are the only three of a kind that beats a full house. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Magda.
And we have a pair tonight, Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker with you. Kyle Magda is off this evening. And one more segment to go in tonight's show. And Tom, we've still got about a month before we get there, but it's never too soon in the winter to start talking about one of my favorite races of the entire calendar year. And this year, this upcoming year, is going to be the 54th running of the great race, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, for what is going to be known now as the WeatherTech, or WeatherTech, if you are French, Canadian, Sports Car Championship in 2016. And a couple of big names recently being announced to rides for the 24-hour race. And one of them, after so many years in a Chip Ganassi racing car, Tom, it's going to be so strange to say this, that Scott Pruitt is not going to be in a Ganassi car because Chip Ganassi Racing not fielding prototypes in 2016. They'll be fielding and helping Ford build the EcoBoost platform with the Ford GT program. Pruitt wanted to go after an overall victory. Therefore, he's teamed up with the two-time defending race winners in Action Express. He'll be driving the 5-car with Joao Barbosa and Christian Fittipaldi as they look to go to victory lane.
Yeah, that's going to be very different. And I think I just love the little sort of stories within the story and the little ironies that happen when you cross racing disciplines. You have Roger Penske, who runs Fords in the NASCAR series, but of course Ford is not involved in Indy cars, so he runs Chevy power plants over there. You have Chip Ganassi, who runs Chevys in Cup and runs Hondas in Indy. No, he runs Chevy. He's also in IndyCar. That's right. He used to run Honda. And he's going to run Ford in sports cars.
He's run Ford in sports cars for years.
But he's actually helping Ford build this program. And the thing that I find interesting about this is Penske used to be involved. No longer is. And so it's just strange to think of Chip Ganassi and Ford together, but in sports cars, of course, they have the relationship. It is going to be strange not having Scott Pruitt in a Ganassi car, but I love what Chip is doing. I love this move for him, and I like the fact that it actually puts Scott Pruitt into a bit of a different situation, and what a team going with Barbosa
two-time
and
defending
Fittipaldi.
Champions.
Yikes. I mean, that's going to be a very, very formidable combination this year at the 24. And, gives us a little bit of something different to focus on here because, obviously, yes, they're the two-time defending champions, but now you add Scott Pruitt to the mix.
Who's a 5-time winner.
Yeah, and it gives you something to focus on with Ganassi as well because, as you say, not going for the overall title and in doing something a little bit different to see how much success he will have with that program out of the box too.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, we cannot say that it's impossible for Ganassi to go to the overall win because we watched in the Petit Le Mans, the season-ending race, that a Porsche GT Le Mans class car, which is what Ganassi's going to be running, is in GT Le Mans, ended up taking the overall victory. Granted, that was in a bit of a downpour at Road Atlanta, but it's not unheard of for Daytona to get rained on during the Rolex 24 either. So I'm not saying it's out of the question. I am saying it's highly unlikely.
Again, it makes it interesting. It gives us something different going into it to focus on some different storylines.
Exactly right. And another storyline and another very big name that is going to be in the Rolex 24 field, a former IndyCar Series champion. Of course, Scott Pruitt has some history in the IndyCar ranks, and this driver won the 2012 championship, the 2014 Indianapolis 500, and he's a former winner in the WeatherTech Championship. Ryan Hunter-Reay going to join Spirit of Daytona, what's now VisitFlorida.com, racing for sponsorship reasons, the blue number 90 prototype for anybody that needs that visual picture. Hunter Ray going to be with two new drivers. Ryan Dial going to be in the 90 with Mark Goosens because both Richard Westbrook and Michael Valiente have moved on to other opportunities. So an all-new driver lineup over there in 2016. Hunter Ray actually going to run 4 races with that squad. He's going to run Daytona, Sebring, Road Atlanta at the end of the year, and also going to team up with Goosens during the Long Beach event that takes place with the IndyCar race weekend, because Dial going to be fulfilling World Endurance Championship obligations overseas. So 4 races of the 11 next year for Ryan Hunter-Reay in that car.
Yeah, and that expands Ryan's racing scape, if you will, for next year. Of course, still the IndyCar driver for Andretti Autosport, and Ryan's certainly getting some opportunities on the sports car side of things now, and I like seeing that. I like seeing some of these drivers go into different disciplines over the course of the year. Again, it keeps things interesting and fresh and gives us an opportunity to watch them in a little bit of a different scenario. And I wish more guys would do this. In fact, I was thinking about the other day and actually having a conversation with somebody about sort of dream teams for a race like the 24 and how cool would it be if. And so think about this combination. Now, this obviously wouldn't happen for this year, but maybe somehow it could happen for next year. Wouldn't it be a great combination? And I would not only want to be watching the race, I'd actually want to be standing in their pit area all day, because the entertainment value would be through the roof. Okay, you take, I don't care who they race for as long as the car is competitive, but here we go. Tony Stewart, Kyle Larson, and Juan Pablo Montoya.
Well,
how much fun would that be to see those guys, and how many nasty jokes that we could never tell on these shows, but wouldn't it be funny to listen? How much fun would that be, and how wild would that car be on the racetrack with those 3 hotfoots in it?
Oh, gosh. And keep in mind that all 3 of them have a former history at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Stewart's been in the past. Heck, Stewart almost won the race in, I think it was 2003, when he had the problem. The motor let go on him with like 18 minutes to go, when he was going for almost an assured victory, Tom, and heartbreak for Stewart in that day. But Montoya's run it for Ganassi and won it 3 times. Larson's run it for Ganassi, won it a couple of years ago during Pruitt's 5th. I mean, all 3 of those have history. Oh gosh, you're painting visions in my head now, son. I love it.
I think if you were going to form a new team for this purpose, you could call it Drive It Till It Drops Motorsports.
Something like that. If you like that combination, as far as the combination you'd most like to see at the Rolex, let me throw this one at you. Who would you like to see that either has never competed at the Rolex or hasn't competed there in a long time? And I'm going to keep you from saying Tony Stewart because you just said him in your first answer. Who would you like to see be back at the Rolex or make their first start?
Wow. Let's see. Who would I most like to see? Here again, a driver that I'm not really so sure. I think he would be great, but I think just a driver, I look for entertainment value, and I think a driver that would make the thing really entertaining, if we could get him over here and get him in the car, would be Marcus Ambrose. I mean, how much fun would that be?
Well, it would be fun. I think the only problem now is he's basically said his racing career is over after stepping out of the V8 supercar, which I hate.
I wonder if, maybe a one-time opportunity, you couldn't get him interested if you, either that or somebody like a James Hinchcliffe, just somebody with a personality who would be a great commentator during the broadcast as well as in the car.
If Hinch hasn't run it, he's been close on a couple of occasions. I feel like we may have talked about his name in the field once before, but gosh darn, I mean, then you've got Hinch, who said at Homestead a couple weeks ago he wants to run and has been lobbying Chip Ganassi for a NASCAR Xfinity Series ride for the 2 road course races next August.
And see, I think I would like to see more of that. I think that would be awesome to see something like that happen. And again, we can at some point over the winter just talk about some wish list items that we liked. In fact, I'm working on a column for Race Chaser right now about things I'd like to see in NASCAR's future. One of them is I would love to see an all-star type event for the Xfinity Series, but I would like to see it at Daytona on their road course during the July Cup weekend and have it be a team deal, sort of like Bathurst is in V8 supercars. Then you could get some of these guys like Hinchcliffe, some of the guys to cross over. It's a non-points event. Make it a big deal, and let's have some fun and spice up the Xfinity Series for one weekend and do something really funky and crazy like that.
That's nutty and fun, and gosh darn, I like that.
Yeah, I just think, I don't understand why they haven't tried the Daytona road course with the Xfinity. And something different. I'd like to see the 3 series each have their own identity. And I think that's one of the things that would really be cool. And it would draw an audience that doesn't usually tune in to Xfinity.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And I think it's all fun things to watch. And you talk about Christmas wish lists, and we're definitely going to get into that more here over the next couple of shows leading into the Christmas holiday. In fact, next Monday going to be our last show before we head off into the winter break.
Last Madness show,
yeah. That's hard to believe and hard to think about. It seems like
really
we were just starting the season not that long ago, and now we're getting ready to draw it to a close, and we get to draw it to a close over the weekend, Tom. Coming up on Thursday, you and I are going to be out at GoPro Motorplex for the Champions Karting Classic for the NASCAR Touring Series. Going to bring all 8 champions, the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East and West titleists, the Whelen Modified and Southern Modified champs, the 3 International Series, the Mexico Series, the Canadian Tire Series, and the Whelen Euro Series champs, as well as Lee Pulliam, the NASCAR Whelen All-American Weekly Series champion. Together, you've got the Media Champion Relay, and then you've got the Champions Kart Race there in the early afternoon. Ben Rhodes, the defending winner of the Champions Race. My money's on William Byron, only because he seems like he can go and adapt and win in anything he gets in. But, I like somebody like an Andy Seiss or a Lee Pulliam. Both of those guys have a little bit of karting experience back in their day.
I'm not placing any bets on that race for 2 reasons. One, because that's a race that you just as like it's really whether or not the leader on the last lap is far enough out to not be crashed by the 2 guys behind them. Ding. So anybody could win. And the second reason I'm not is because I have too many friends that are going to be involved there. True. But it's going to be a blast. And then, of course, the 2 banquets, Friday and Saturday night. It's a great weekend for NASCAR's short track divisions and regional developmental divisions that don't get the publicity that the national divisions do. And it's really going to be fun for us. And we're going to have a lot of material from the banquets, from the media day, all of that coming up on RaceChaserOnline.com and the Performance Motorsports Network as we finish out this year and go into 2016. We'll have continuing interviews and such from that with all of the vital parties involved.
That's right. Final question. Are you going to be convinced this year to run the Media Champions Relay?
No. You mentioned that we were a pair tonight, considering I'm still in the shape of a pair, and that I think I could be a little bit more productive by manning the camera and doing some interviews. I think we'll stick to the media role, and I will work hard to get in shape to come back next year out of retirement and try it again. But it'll be a lot of fun one way or the other. You will have a great time. And it's, again, it's great to be able to be involved with these things. And this time of year is a time when you count your blessings and be thankful for what you have. And I know you and I both just every day shake our heads that we actually get to do this sort of thing and call it a living, at least for me. So definitely happy to be doing that this coming weekend, and we'll have all the coverage on RaceChaserOnline.com as we go.
Yes, we will. And with that, we'll throw a checkered flag on tonight's edition of Motorsports Madness. Next Monday, the last one before the winter holiday. And we do want to say thank you to some of the partners and supporters that help make our work happen here at Race Chaser Online and the Performance Motorsports Network. Of course, Stock Car Steel and Aluminum, SRI Performance, Big Mike, our producer, and all the staff at PMN. Want to give a shout out to our partners over at 3 Wide Life. Mike Garrity and some of the staff over there have been staunch supporters of us over the past couple of years, and we continue on into our final week of coverage here on PMN next week. But right now, checkers are out. For Tom and the rest of our Race Chaser Online staff, I'm Jacob Seelman, reminding you to keep it off the wall, Tom, and not wad it up as we tend to do sometimes. Until we meet again, we'll see you next time, either here on the web or at the racetrack. Have a safe racing weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Motorsports Madness with the Speed77 Radio Race Chaser Online crew. Stay tuned to Performance Motorsports Network for more race talk. For the latest motorsports news, visit racechaseronline.com. Motorsports Madness is a copyrighted production of the Performance Motorsports Network. www.performancemotorsportsnetwork.com. A member of the Scorpion Radio Group, Inc., and may not be rebroadcast, replicated, or saved in any media without the explicit written permission of PMN. Check out our Facebook page or our section on the PMN website. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host, co-host, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of the management and ownership of either the Performance Motorsports Network or Scorpion Radio Group Incorporated, the advertisers, or the marketing partners. Be listening again next week when the madness returns on Monday night at 7 Eastern. Until then, keep it off the wall and keep the shiny side up.